Stop. Before you scroll past this, look at your eyes and your phone's camera right now. Go ahead, I'll wait. What you're seeing isn't just a random color assigned to you at birth. That specific shade staring back at you is a biological time capsule, a living record of your ancestors' greatest battles for survival. Every fleck of color, every variation in tone is written in a genetic code that stretches back tens of thousands of years. Your eye color is a map showing exactly how your bloodline conquered some of the harshest environments on Earth. And by the end of this, you'll never look at yourself or anyone else the same way again. Here's something that will blow your mind. Over 70% of every human being walking this planet right now has brown eyes, but that remaining 30%, they're carrying genetic mutations so rare, so specific, that scientists can trace them back to single individuals who lived thousands of years ago. Your eyes aren't just windows to your soul, they're survival equipment your ancestors engineered through generation after generation of adaptation. Let's decode what your eye color actually reveals about where you came from and what your DNA was built to withstand. Brown eyes, the ultimate evolutionary armor. If you have brown eyes, you're looking through the most sophisticated natural protection system evolution ever designed. That deep, warm color you see isn't decorative, it's armor. Every shade of brown, from honey to nearly black, comes from melanin, a pigment so remarkably powerful that it absorbs up to 90% of all light entering your eye before it can penetrate deeper structures. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen spent years studying this phenomenon, and what they discovered fundamentally changed how we understand eye color. Melanin doesn't just create color as a side effect, it functions as a built-in sunscreen woven directly into the architecture of your iris. Think about that for a moment. Your body literally constructed UV protection into your eyes. For your earliest ancestors crossing the African savanna tens of thousands of years ago, this wasn't about aesthetics, this was life or death. The sun beating down on the equator releases ultraviolet radiation intense enough to shatter DNA molecules in unprotected cells. Melanin intercepts those UV rays before they can cause that damage. It absorbs the energy, dissipates it as harmless heat, and protects the delicate genetic machinery inside your eye cells. But brown eyes do something even more impressive than just blocking harm. They actually perform better in bright light than any other eye color. Because melanin absorbs light rather than scattering it randomly, people with brown eyes experience significantly less glare sensitivity. Their vision stays sharper and clearer in intense daylight conditions that would leave lighter-eyed people squinting and struggling. This is precisely why brown eyes absolutely dominate in populations living closer to the equator. It's not coincidence, it's precision engineering shaped by thousands of generations facing relentless sun exposure. From sub-Saharan Africa to South Asia, from indigenous Australia to equatorial South America, brown eyes appear wherever humans needed maximum UV defense. The appearance of brown eyes seems simple at first glance. They look rich, solid, uniform, but catch them in the right light, in the warm glow of candlelight, or during golden hour when the sun sits low, and you might notice something magical. Golden flashes, amber undertones, subtle variations dancing across the iris. That's not your eyes changing color, that's physics revealing the layered structure beneath the surface as scattered light plays across the outer iris in ways harsh overhead light never lets you see. Now here's where human history gets absolutely fascinating. Every single person with blue eyes on Earth, every one of them descends from a single ancestor. One person, one individual who lived somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago carried a genetic mutation that would eventually spread to hundreds of millions of people. Scientists publishing in the journal Human Genetics trace this extraordinary lineage back to a specific mutation in something called the HERC2 gene. This mutation did something remarkable. It literally switched off the production of brown pigment in the iris, just turned it off. Before this mutation appeared, Archaeologists and geneticists agree everyone had brown eyes, every human being on the planet. But here's something that will completely reshape how you think about blue eyes. They're not actually blue. There is zero blue pigment in a blue iris. None. Instead, blue eyes contain almost no melanin at all, and when light enters that melanin-depleted iris, something beautiful happens. Shorter wavelengths, the blues, scatter back out toward anyone looking at the eye. Longer wavelengths pass straight through. It's the exact same scattering effect that makes our sky appear blue instead of black during the day. This structural trick, this absence of pigment creating the illusion of color, means blue eyes are incredibly dynamic. They shift from icy bright to soft gray to deeper blue depending on lighting conditions, what you're wearing, even the colors surrounding you. They're not changing color, they're revealing how light behaves when it has nothing to absorb it. Scientists pinpointed when and where this mutation emerged. During the Neolithic expansion, humans were migrating from the Black Sea region northward into what would become Europe. Somewhere in that journey, in one person, the HERC2 gene mutated, and then something extraordinary happened. Blue eyes exploded across the population. In just a few thousand years, barely a blink in evolutionary time, blue eyes went from literally 0% of the population to 70 to 95% frequency in Northern Europe. That kind of spread is almost unheard of. That's not random genetic drift. Something was driving blue eyes to dominate. But why? This is the mystery that still baffles researchers. One compelling theory suggests they provided a genuine survival advantage in low-light environments. With minimal melanin blocking incoming light, blue eyes allow more photons to reach the retina. In the long, dark winters of Northern Europe, where daylight lasted only a few hours, enhanced vision in dim conditions could mean the difference between spotting danger or missing it entirely, between finding food and going hungry. Another theory points to sexual selection, and honestly, this one might be even more powerful. Blue eyes were so rare, so striking, so different from anything humans had ever seen that they became intensely attractive. People with blue eyes might have been preferentially chosen as mates simply because they were captivating. That attraction could have accelerated exponentially through generation after generation. Recent DNA analysis from ancient human remains uncovered something that demolished decades of assumptions. Some early Europeans had blue eyes paired with dark, African-like skin. Blue eyes evolved before pale skin. They weren't just accidental byproducts of northern adaptation. They were their own distinct evolutionary event. Gray eyes are the rarest shade of all. Gray eyes are so rare that most people have never knowingly seen them. Found in less than 3% of the global population, gray eyes represent an extreme on the melanin spectrum. They contain even less melanin than blue eyes, creating a diffuse scattering effect across multiple wavelengths instead of just blue. This gives them that distinctive steel-like, silvery appearance that can shift from bright silver to deep slate to subtly greenish depending on surrounding conditions. Functionally, researchers believe gray eyes evolved as an extreme adaptation for maximum light sensitivity in Northern Europe, where overcast skies and limited sunlight created constant visual challenges. The broad wavelength dispersion makes gray eyes incredibly neutral and stable in tone. They don't flash warm or bright like blue eyes can. They maintain a cool, constant quality. But there's something else about gray eyes that researchers have noticed. They're emotionally harder to read. With less color variation for our brains to track and interpret, gray eyes can feel enigmatic, detached, even mysterious. Some evolutionary psychologists suggest this may explain their cultural associations with wisdom, emotional control, and inscrutability across different societies. However, this extreme lack of protective melanin creates vulnerability. People with gray eyes face similar UV risks as blue-eyed individuals and require vigilant sun protection throughout their lives to prevent cumulative damage. Green eyes, the genetic jackpot. Only 2% of all humans have green eyes. 2%. That makes green eyes the rarest common eye color on Earth, and the reason they're so uncommon reveals just how complex eye color genetics actually is. Green eyes require a precise genetic cocktail involving at least 16 different genes working in perfect, delicate balance. Too much melanin production and the eyes turn brown. Too little and they become blue. Green eyes exist in that incredibly narrow sweet spot where moderate melanin levels combine with a yellow pigment called lipochrome. When light interacts with this specific combination, it creates that distinctive, mesmerizing green hue. But there's something else about green eyes that researchers have noticed. They're emotionally harder to read. With less color variation for our brains to track and interpret, gray eyes can feel enigmatic, detached, even mysterious. Some evolutionary psychologists suggest this may explain their cultural associations with wisdom, emotional control, and inscrutability across different societies. However, this extreme lack of protective melanin creates vulnerability. People with gray eyes face similar UV risks as blue-eyed individuals and require vigilant sun protection throughout their lives to prevent cumulative damage. Green eyes, the genetic jackpot. Only 2% of all humans have green eyes. 2%. That makes green eyes the rarest common eye color on Earth, and the reason they're so uncommon reveals just how complex eye color genetics actually is. Green eyes require a precise genetic cocktail involving at least 16 different genes working in perfect, delicate balance. Too much melanin production and the eyes turn brown. Too little and they become blue. Green eyes exist in that incredibly narrow sweet spot where moderate melanin levels combine with a yellow pigment called lipochrome. When light interacts with this specific combination, it creates that distinctive, mesmerizing green hue. But there's something else about green eyes that researchers have noticed. They're emotionally harder to read. With less color variation for our brains to track and interpret, gray eyes can feel enigmatic, detached, even mysterious. Some evolutionary psychologists suggest this may explain their cultural associations with wisdom, emotional control, and inscrutability across different societies. However, this extreme lack of protective melanin creates vulnerability. People with gray eyes face similar UV risks as blue-eyed individuals and require vigilant sun protection throughout their lives to prevent cumulative damage.
Genetically, green eyes appear most frequently in people of Celtic and Germanic ancestry, particularly in Ireland and Scotland, where up to 86% of some isolated populations carry the trait. However, given the right genetic combinations, green eyes can appear in any population, anywhere. Hazel eyes, the ultimate chameleons. Hazel eyes are evolution's Swiss Army knife. Unlike every other eye color, hazel eyes genuinely, physically change appearance based on lighting conditions, what you're wearing, and your surroundings. This isn't an optical illusion or trick of perception. It's a real physical phenomenon driven by intermediate melanin levels and traces of lipochrome interacting differently with varying wavelengths of light. One moment, hazel eyes appear predominantly green. The next, they're golden, then brown. Then some impossible-to-name combination of all three. This color-shifting ability reflects a genuine evolutionary advantage, versatility. Sitting precisely between light and dark on the melanin spectrum, hazel eyes are beautifully equipped for mixed, changing environments. Bright sun, deep shade, seasonal variations, unpredictable climates. They offer moderate UV protection while maintaining reasonable light sensitivity, making them genuinely adaptable. About 5% of the global population has hazel eyes, with higher concentrations in people of European and Middle Eastern ancestry. Genetically, they represent a blend rather than a single defined trait, often appearing in families with diverse eye color backgrounds where different genetic influences combine unpredictably. What makes hazel particularly fascinating from a genetic standpoint is the sheer variability. Two people with hazel eyes can have completely different distributions of color in their irises. One might show more green with scattered brown spots. Another might be predominantly brown with green rings around the pupil. This variation has made hazel eyes seem mysterious and emotionally expressive throughout history, bridging the spectrum between dark and light with one of the most dynamic, changeable appearances in the human population. Amber, black, and heterochromia, the exceptional few. Amber eyes, found in less than 5% of people, are distinctly different from both hazel and light brown, though they're often confused with both. They contain high levels of lipochrome with very little melanin, resulting in a solid golden, copper, or honey-colored iris that stays richly, consistently golden under all lighting conditions. Unlike hazel eyes that shift, amber remains stable and intense. This coloration is also common in predatory animals like wolves, owls, and eagles, which may explain why humans subconsciously react to amber eyes as intense, commanding, or alert. Some researchers suggest we instinctively associate this color with focus and confidence, potentially offering subtle social advantages throughout life. True black eyes technically don't exist. What appears black is actually an extreme concentration of dark brown melanin so dense that the iris looks completely uniform and lightless. This saturation provides maximum UV protection and glare reduction, offering clear advantages in equatorial regions with constant, intense sun exposure. Black eyes are common in populations from Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, and they've been culturally linked to themes of mystery and strength. The dense melanin makes it harder to see pupil dilation changes that occur with emotion, which some interpret as emotional inscrutability or depth. Heterochromia, the condition where someone has two differently colored eyes or noticeable variations within a single iris, affects less than 1% of the population. It occurs when melanin distribution is disrupted during development, usually due to minor genetic mutations or mosaicism. Historically, heterochromic eyes have been seen as signs of duality, supernatural connection, or divine favor, perhaps because they break the visual symmetry we subconsciously expect in human faces. The legacy written in your eyes. Your eye color carries the complete story of your ancestors, their migrations across continents, their adaptations to brutal or beautiful environments, the environments they not just survived, but conquered. From the melanin-rich brown eyes that protected humans crossing ancient savannas under merciless sun, to the blue-eyed mutation that swept through Ice Age Europe in mere thousands of years, each color represents a distinct chapter in the epic of human evolution. So the next time you look in the mirror, understand something profound. You're not just seeing a color assigned randomly at birth, you're seeing thousands of years of survival, brilliant adaptation, and the incredible genetic lottery that made you exactly, precisely who you are. Your eyes are time machines, and they're staring right back at you.